The transport ship settled on the dusty landing field just as the second sun began to sink. The sky of Lyrian Prime was painted in soft red and violet colors, wide and quiet, with tall crystal towers rising in the distance like frozen lightning. Human Sergeant Daniel Cale stepped down the ramp with slow, careful steps. He had learned that moving too fast on alien worlds often made others nervous. Humans were already known as dangerous enough. Daniel had been on Lyrian Prime for 3 months. He was part of a small human security unit assigned to protect diplomats and scientists. Officially, humans were guests. Unofficially, they were here because the Lyrian people feared what might happen if humans ever became enemies instead of allies. Daniel was tall, broad-shouldered, and scarred in small ways that spoke of old battles. Compared to the Lyrian, who were slender and light-boned, he looked heavy and rough. His face was calm, but his eyes were always watching. Humans survived by noticing things others ignored. That evening, the great gathering hall was filled with soft light and slow music. Alien nobles moved in graceful patterns, their long robes shimmering with natural colors. Daniel stood near the edge of the hall, hands behind his back, acting as nothing more than a guard. That was how humans stayed alive in alien politics, by listening more than speaking. The Lyrian were not cruel by nature, but their traditions were old and sharp. Daniel had already seen how easily kindness could be buried under ritual. He noticed her when she hesitated near the entrance. She was smaller than the others, her skin a pale silver blue that reflected the hall's light. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with worry she tried to hide. She wore no jewels, no marks of status. To the trained human eye, she looked like someone who did not belong among the powerful. She watched the room like a hunted animal. Daniel shifted slightly, pretending not to stare. Humans had learned that direct attention could be taken as aggression. Still, he saw how her hands trembled and how her breathing was uneven. She was afraid. Slowly, carefully, she moved closer to where he stood. Each step looked like a decision she might regret. Daniel did not move. When she reached him, she did not look up at first. Her voice, when it came, was barely louder than the music. "I need you for this night." The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was heavy. Daniel felt his muscles tighten, not in desire but in alertness. Humans had survived wars by learning when a whisper was more dangerous than a shout. He did not answer right away. He waited, giving her space to continue. She finally looked at him. Her eyes met his, and for a moment all the noise of the hall seemed to fade. "My name is Sarai," she said. "If I do not complete the night binding, I will be cast out, or worse." Daniel kept his voice low. "Why ask me?" Her lips pressed together as if the answer hurt. "No one else would." That was all she said, but it was enough. Daniel had read about the night binding. It was an ancient Lyrian tradition meant to test unity and endurance. Two beings were bound together for a full night in the wild regions beyond the city. The trial was meant to prove compatibility and strength. In the past, it had been romantic. Now it was something closer to punishment. The land beyond the city was not gentle. The air turned cold, the ground sharp with crystal growths, and predators hunted by sound and fear. Most Lyrian nobles chose partners from powerful families. Sarai clearly had not been chosen. "You know I'm human," Daniel said quietly. She nodded. "That is why I came to you." He studied her face. There was fear there, yes, but also resolve. She had already accepted the risk. "You know what they say about us," he said. "They say humans endure," she replied. "They say humans do not break." Daniel looked back toward the hall. Several Lyrian elders were watching from afar, their expressions unreadable. He understood then that this was not just her choice. This was a test, maybe even a trap. Humans were often used that way. "I won't harm you," Sarai said quickly, misunderstanding his silence. "I only need to survive the night. I will stay out of your way, I swear." Daniel exhaled slowly. He had sworn oaths to protect allies, to stand against injustice. He had broken rules before when they conflicted with those oaths. "All right," he said at last, "but you stay close, and you do exactly what I say." Relief washed over her face so strongly that Daniel felt a strange ache in his chest. The departure was swift. There was no ceremony, no blessing. They were given basic supplies and led to the edge of the city. Beyond that point, they were alone. As they walked into the open land, the city lights fading behind them, Sarai hugged her arms to her body. "They expect me to fail," she said softly. "Then we disappoint them," Daniel replied. The ground grew rougher as they moved forward. Sharp crystal formations rose from the earth like frozen waves. Daniel adjusted his pace so Sarai could keep up. He noticed how carefully she stepped, how fragile she seemed in this harsh place. When the light fully faded, the cold came quickly. Daniel set up a small shelter using human survival gear. It was simple but effective, designed for worlds far more hostile than this. Sarai watched with quiet amazement. "You do this often?" she asked. "Too often," he said. They sat near the shelter, the faint glow of a heat unit casting long shadows. The night sounds began, low vibrations through the ground, distant calls that made Sarai flinch. She moved closer without thinking. Daniel did not comment. "You are not afraid," she said after a while. "I am," he answered. "I just don't let it decide for me." She considered that in silence. Hours passed slowly. Daniel stayed awake, listening, watching. Once something large moved in the distance, its shape barely visible against the dark. Daniel placed himself between it and Sarai without a word. The creature eventually passed. Sarai saw everything. No one had ever stood between her and danger before. As the night deepened, the cold grew sharper. Sarai began to shiver despite her clothing. Daniel removed his outer jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She looked up at him in surprise. "You will freeze." "I won't," he said. "Humans are stubborn like that." She held the jacket close, her fingers tightening around the fabric as if it were proof that this was real. "I thought the night binding was about being chosen," she said quietly. "I did not know it was about being abandoned." Daniel looked out into the dark. Some traditions forget why they started. Silence settled again, but it was no longer empty. There was trust there now, fragile but growing. As the first faint light of morning began to touch the horizon, Sarai let out a shaky breath. I think we will survive," she said. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Yeah," he replied, "we will." Far away, unseen eyes watched the pair. The elders had expected fear, chaos, maybe even blood. Instead, they saw something they did not understand yet. A human standing guard in the dark, not for power, not for reward, but because someone had asked for help. And that was how the night truly began to change everything. The morning light did not bring warmth. It only revealed how dangerous the land truly was. Crystal fields stretched in every direction, sharp and uneven, reflecting pale light that hurt the eyes if stared at too long. Thin mist moved close to the ground, hiding cracks and sudden drops. Daniel rose slowly, muscles stiff but ready. He had slept in short bursts, never fully resting. Humans learned to live that way. Sarai woke a moment later. She looked confused at first, then remembered where she was. Her eyes widened slightly, then softened when she saw Daniel still there. "You stayed," she said quietly. "I said I would," Daniel replied. She nodded and stood, wrapping the jacket tighter around herself. The warmth of it seemed to give her courage. She looked different now, still afraid but no longer broken. They began moving before the sun climbed higher. Daniel knew this land would become more dangerous as the light increased. Heat woke predators. Shadows shrank. Hiding places disappeared. As they walked, the ground began to vibrate in faint, steady pulses. Sarai froze. "Do you feel that?" Daniel did. He lowered himself, placing one hand on the crystal ground. The vibrations were rhythmic, heavy. "Large creatures," he said, "moving in groups." Her breathing quickened. "They hunt by sound, by fear." "Then we stay quiet," Daniel said, "and calm." That was easier said than done. They moved slowly, choosing paths where the crystal was dull and less likely to crack. Daniel went first, testing each step. More than once he caught Sarai before she slipped into hidden gaps. Each time she whispered a quick thank you, her trust growing with every moment. By midday the sun burned white above them. The mist faded and with it their cover. That was when the first creature appeared. It rose from behind a ridge, tall and long, with 4 powerful limbs and a narrow head filled with layered teeth. Its skin shifted color, blending with the crystal around it. Only its eyes gave it away dark and focused. Sarai gasped. The creature's head snapped toward them. Daniel moved instantly. He pulled Sarai behind him and raised a small human signal device, slamming it against a crystal spike. A sharp, piercing sound echoed across the field, loud and sudden. The creature recoiled, confused. It hissed, backing away slightly. Daniel kept his stance firm. His heart pounded, but his face remained calm. After a tense moment, the creature turned and vanished into the crystal maze. Sarai sank to her knees. "That sound," she whispered. "No Lyrian would do that. It would attract more." "Sometimes," Daniel said, offering a hand, "fear works both ways." She took his hand and stood. Her grip lingered longer this time. They continued forward, the land growing harsher. The elders had chosen this route deliberately. Daniel could feel it. This was meant to be impossible. As the day passed, Sarai began to slow. Her steps became uneven, her breath shallow. Lyrian bodies were not built for long endurance. Humans were. Daniel noticed before she spoke. "Rest," he said. She shook her head. "If I stop, I won't be able to start again." He did not argue. Instead, he adjusted their path toward a narrow ravine where shade still remained. Once there, he guided her to sit and handed her a water pack. "Drink," he said. "Small sips." She obeyed, watching him with quiet curiosity. "You prepare for everything," she said. "We prepare for failure," Daniel replied. "That's how we survive." The ground trembled again, stronger this time. Daniel looked up sharply. This vibration was different, faster, closer. A pack. He scanned the ravine. Limited exits, poor visibility, not ideal. "Stay behind me," he said. 3 shapes emerged at the ravine's edge, smaller than the first creature but faster. Their bodies were lean, built for pursuit. Their eyes locked onto Sarai. Daniel stepped forward. One creature lunged. Daniel moved without hesitation. He used a crystal shard like a lever, jamming it into the creature's limb joint. The creature screamed, a sharp, shrill sound, and fell back. The others hesitated. Humans were not strong by alien standards. But they were unpredictable. Daniel did not chase. He stood his ground, breathing steady, eyes locked forward. His calm was unnatural to them. After a long moment, the creatures retreated, dragging the injured one away. Sarai stared at Daniel, her chest rising and falling fast. "You fought for me," she said. "I said I would keep you alive," he answered. "No one ever did that," she whispered. As evening approached, the land changed again. The crystals darkened, absorbing heat. The air grew thick, heavy with energy that made Sarai wince. "This is the mind field," she said. "It tests thought and emotion." Daniel frowned. "How? It makes you see what you fear most." That was dangerous. They entered the field together. Almost immediately, Daniel felt pressure behind his eyes. Memories rose unbidden, battlefields, fallen comrades, worlds burned. He clenched his jaw, grounding himself in the present. Sarai cried out softly. He turned to her. She was shaking, eyes unfocused. "Look at me," Daniel said firmly. "Just me." She tried, but tears slipped down her face. "They are all watching me," she said, "judging me, calling me weak." Daniel stepped closer, blocking her view of the shimmering air. "You're here," he said. "You're walking, you didn't fail." She grabbed his arm, holding on like an anchor. The field pushed harder. Illusions thickened. Daniel saw shapes moving that were not real, heard voices that were long gone. He breathed slowly. One step, then another. Humans had learned long ago that pain could be endured. Fear could be managed. Memory could be faced. When they finally stepped out of the field, Sarai collapsed against him. He held her until her breathing slowed. The second sun began to set. Night would return soon, and with it, the final test. They reached a high ridge overlooking the city far below. Lights flickered in the distance. Observers watched from hidden towers. Sarai followed Daniel's gaze. "They are waiting to see if I break," she said. Daniel looked down at her, really looked at her. She was exhausted, bruised, trembling, but still standing. "They already lost," he said. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped sharply. Winds howled across the ridge, carrying sharp crystal dust. Daniel built another shelter, stronger this time, anchoring it between natural stone. Sarai helped as much as she could, determined not to be useless. "You could have left," she said quietly as they worked. "No one would have blamed you." "I would have," Daniel replied. The night deepened. Distant roars echoed. Lights from the city blinked like cold stars. Sarai sat beside Daniel, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. "When this ends," she said, "they will ask what happened." "What will you tell them?" Daniel asked. She thought for a long moment. "That a human walked beside me," she said, "and that was enough." Daniel said nothing, but something settled firmly in his chest. Above them, the sky burned with alien stars. Below them, an old tradition began to crack. And the night was not yet finished. The final night was colder than the others. The wind cut across the ridge like a living thing, carrying sharp dust that stung exposed skin. Daniel stayed awake, sitting with his back against the shelter wall, eyes scanning the darkness. His body was tired, but his mind refused rest. Humans had learned long ago that the most dangerous moment was believing the worst had already passed. Sarai slept only in short moments. Each time she drifted off, her body tensed again, as if expecting the ground itself to turn against her. When she woke for the third time, she sat up slowly and looked at Daniel. "You never sleep," she said softly. "I do," he replied, "just not all at once." She gave a weak smile, then her expression grew serious. "There is one more trial," she said. "The elders call it the silent choice." Daniel turned his head slightly. "What does that mean?" "At dawn," she explained, "they will signal us. If I walk back alone, I am considered unworthy. If my partner leaves before the signal, I am considered abandoned. Only if we return together am I accepted." Daniel nodded once. "Simple rules, cruel ones. And if I refuse," he asked. Her voice dropped. "Then I am cast out. Or used as an example." Daniel looked out into the darkness again. Somewhere far below, eyes were watching, waiting. "They designed this to break you," he said. "Yes," Sarai replied, "because I do not fit what they want." Daniel did not answer, but his jaw tightened. As the hours passed, the wind began to change. It howled less and carried a low, deep sound like the breathing of something massive. Daniel stood slowly, placing a hand on the shelter wall. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Sarai nodded, fear returning to her eyes. "The Watcher." Daniel frowned. "What is that?" "A guardian of the trial," she said. "It is not meant to be fought, only endured." The sound grew louder. The ground vibrated with heavy, slow steps. Daniel reached for his equipment, checking what little remained. He had planned for many things, but not this. From the darkness beyond the ridge, a shape emerged. It was enormous, taller than any creature they had seen before. Its body was wide and armored with natural crystal plates. Its eyes glowed faintly, ancient and unblinking. Sarai stood frozen. Daniel stepped forward without thinking, placing himself between her and the creature. "Daniel," she whispered, "if it reaches me, the trial ends." "That's not happening," he said. The Watcher stopped a short distance away. Its head lowered slightly, studying them. It did not rush. It did not roar. It simply waited. Daniel realized then that this was not a beast of hunger. It was a test of will. The pressure in the air grew heavy. Daniel felt it pushing against his thoughts, pulling at his fears, his doubts. He saw flashes of old battles, lost friends, moments when he had failed. He clenched his fists. Behind him, Sarai cried out softly, dropping to one knee. The pressure was worse for her. Her species was not built for this kind of mental strain. Daniel turned back to her. "Look at me," he said firmly. "Don't look at it, look at me." She tried, tears streaming down her face. "I can't." "Yes, you can," he said, lowering himself to her level. "You walked through everything else. This is just another step." The watcher took one slow step forward. The ground shook. Daniel stood and faced it fully. "You want to test us?" he said aloud, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Fine, test me." The creature's gaze shifted to him. The pressure doubled. Daniel felt his knees strain, muscles screaming. He focused on his breathing. In, out, 1 second at a time. Humans did not win by being the strongest. They won by refusing to stop. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time blurred. Sarai slowly stood behind him, using his presence as a shield. She placed a trembling hand on his back. "I'm here," she said. That was enough. The watcher tilted its head. For a long moment nothing happened. Then slowly it stepped back. The pressure eased, lifting like a heavy weight from Daniel's mind. With a deep, echoing sound, the watcher turned and disappeared into the darkness. Sarai collapsed against Daniel, sobbing with relief. "It let us pass," she whispered. Daniel held her steady. "You did that." "No," she said, shaking her head. "We did." The sky began to lighten at the edges. Dawn was coming. Far below, a beam of light shot into the sky from the city. The signal. Sarai stiffened. "This is it." Daniel helped her pack what little they had left. His movements were calm, controlled. Inside, he felt something hard and clear forming. They began the descent together. The path back was steep and dangerous, but the land itself seemed quieter now, as if the trial had decided. When they reached the outer gates of the city, they were met by silence. Rows of elders stood waiting, their expressions cold and unreadable. Crowds gathered behind them, whispering. Sarai slowed, her courage wavering. Daniel did not let go of her hand. They walked forward together. An elder stepped out, his voice amplified and sharp. "Sarai of the lesser houses," he said, "you stand accused of failing tradition." Daniel felt her grip tighten. "Speak," the elder commanded. Sarai took a breath. Her voice shook at first, then grew stronger. "I completed the night binding," she said. "I endured every trial." "You chose a human," another elder said. "An outsider." "Yes," Sarai replied, "because no one else chose me." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The first elder turned his gaze to Daniel. "Human, you were not required to stay." Daniel met his eyes. "No," he said simply. "I chose to." The elder studied him carefully. "Why?" Daniel did not hesitate. "Because she asked for help, and because leaving would have been wrong." Silence fell. The elders conferred quietly among themselves. Daniel could feel the tension rising like a storm waiting to break. Finally, the lead elder raised his staff. "The trial was designed to reveal weakness," he said. "Instead, it has revealed something else." He looked out over the crowd. "It has revealed the strength of standing together," gasps echoed. Sarai's eyes widened. "The night binding is fulfilled," the elder continued. "Not by bloodline or status, but by endurance and loyalty." He turned to Sarai. "You are accepted." Her knees nearly gave out. Daniel felt a strange tightness in his chest. Relief, pride, something deeper. The crowd erupted into noise. Some were angry. Others were amazed. Many simply stared at the human who had walked through their sacred trial and changed it. As they were dismissed, Sarai turned to Daniel, tears shining in her eyes. "You didn't have to do any of this," she said. Daniel shrugged slightly. "Maybe not, but I'm glad I did." Later, as the sun fully rose and the city buzzed with rumors, Sarai stood on a balcony overlooking the crystal fields they had crossed. "They will talk about this night for generations," she said. Daniel leaned against the railing. "They should. Traditions don't change unless someone survives them." She looked at him then, really looked at him. "You will leave," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Daniel replied. "That was always the plan." Her shoulders slumped, but she nodded. "Still, thank you." He met her gaze. "You were never weak," he said. They just forgot how to see strength. As the human transport prepared for departure, many eyes followed Daniel, not with fear this time, but respect. In the end, the story that spread across Lyrian Prime was not about a ritual or a trial. It was about a whisper in a crowded hall, and about a human who answered it, walked into the night, and refused to let go.